Good morning, everyone. This is John with Gun Deals, and today we're taking a look at perhaps one of the most popular pistol optics on the market currently. This specific model is the Holosun 507C X2 Green version, though again, Holosun optics in general are fairly ubiquitous on pistols nowadays just because they provide so much performance per dollar that it is very hard to beat. But before we get into that, if you don't know, Gun.Deals is a website that provides you with links to some of the best products and prices in the industry. Whatever it happens to be that you're looking for, go ahead and check them out first. Once again, that is Gun.Deals. They probably have a link to it for the best possible price. Now, with all of that out of the way, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, as that is all free and does help us out quite a bit. Also, go ahead and comment your favorite pistol optic in the comments down below. Now, full disclosure on this optic, I paid about $220 for it on a killer deal, which is another awesome thing about these optics is they generally can be found for under $300 depending on which model you go for, and sometimes they can be found for around the $200 mark. Now, this one specifically, as I mentioned earlier, this is the 507C X2 Green version. So the 500 series, full-size red dot with the multiple reticle option. So getting into that really quickly, I'm not a huge fan of the Holosun general reticles on the 500 series. I'd much rather have just like a 6 or an 8 MOA dot like you can find on the 400 series. However, the reticle in the 500 series is you have the 2 MOA dot and the 32 MOA outer circle, and then you can cycle between one or the other, or of course both of them at the same time. This is of course the green version. Now, getting into the specs on the build itself, fortunately, these are made out of 7075 T6 aluminum, which is about twice to 2.5 times as strong as 6061. So in pistol optics, where strength is paramount because they're not necessarily the most durable things by design, I'd like to see 7075 and of course a thick hull like the 507C has. This is definitely not a small or lightweight pistol optic, though again, it does err more on the side of durability. Now, in terms of controls, we of course have a plus and a minus button for plus and minus things. You have 2 night vision settings and then 10 daylight settings. On the green version, the battery life is still rated at 50,000 hours. Now, that's at setting 6, which is not really usable. Usually with this optic, in full daylight, you're going to be towards the top end of the brightness levels. It does get more than bright enough for sure, but it's most usable at the 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range for full daylight use. So you're never really going to be on setting 6 unless you're indoors or something like that. Now, of course, we have our elevation and windage, which are slightly recessed into the body. Somewhat unfortunately, they use a very small flathead for adjustment, so they can be a little bit obnoxious to adjust on the fly, as it does require a very small tool to get in there and adjust them. Fortunately, on this optic, though, it's very rare that it's going to lose zero, as these are very durable optics, so you shouldn't be adjusting it all that much. It's more of a set and forget style of thing. Now, the mounting platform for the 507C, this is a RMR mounting platform, so anything that can take an RMR should be able to fit the 507C. This is direct mounted to this aim surplus slide, which is of course cut for an RMR, and it fits very nice in here. It is a tight fit on the slide, so you have almost no movement forward and back. Unfortunately, there are no recoil bosses on the aim surplus slide, so eventually those screws will probably snap or shear off, and you will need to replace them to retain your optic to your slide. Now, speaking of securing the optic to your slide, this uses basically an industry standard of 2 Torx bolts that bolt directly into the slide itself. Again, the only thing that this combination is missing is recoil bosses on the slide, which would provide an additional level of security and of course take some of the force off of your screws that are meant to just be clamping, not as necessarily recoil bosses. Now, these are torqued to 22 inch-pounds. I believe the recommended specs is like 18 inch-pounds, but I usually just go just a touch above what they recommend. And these are also blue Loctited in place, so in theory, unless I get this gun very, very hot, they shouldn't move whatsoever. Now, last couple things to mention on the body itself. On the right side of the optic body, we have the side-loading battery tray, which is a very nice feature, meaning that in the event that battery does die at some point in the future, you can change the battery without having to adjust your zero, like on certain RMRs and other optics that use a bottom-loading battery. Now, it is a 1632, which is, again, not quite as powerful as a 2032, doesn't have quite as much juice in there, But again, they are still claiming a 50,000 hour battery life, so it doesn't seem to hamper performance too much. Now, on top of that, this also comes with Holosun's solar Failsafe technology, which is not a charging unit, so it does not charge the battery when it's installed. All this does is provide, again, a failsafe should your battery die, go dead, what have you, and you are exposed to enough ambient light, the sun or what have you. It will be able to power the reticle, and it does work. It's not necessarily a gimmicky feature, as it does work. Now, for me personally, on these sort of red dots or green dots in this case that have exceptionally long battery lives to begin with, and then that is of course paired with Holosun's auto on, auto off technology, which will again extend your battery life even further because it's only on when it senses motion, and then after a few minutes it will automatically turn off. The solar failsafe is perhaps a little bit redundant, not that that is a bad thing to have on your optic, is again just another power source in case that battery goes dead. Now admittedly, that is a ton of features and options in an optic this small and lightweight, coming in at a whopping 1.5 ounces, and it basically has every trick Holosun could throw at it. Now, getting into the glass itself, because of course you are going to be using this, it is a fairly large window. It's not the largest window on the market. You have SROs and some other more specialized optics that have really large windows designed for target competition and so on and so forth. But the 507C is certainly no slouch in that regard. You can definitely get your eyes behind it in a variety, in a large range of motion. So it is easy to find the dot, very easy to pick up, especially if it's something that you practice with. It is something that is not a problem. I can still do it on smaller optics with smaller windows, but again, having a bigger window is just a nice feature to have. Now, getting into the glass quality itself, it does definitely have a very noticeable blue notch filter that is common on most Holosun optics. However, the glass itself is crisp, it is clear, it is nice. It does have a very, very noticeable warping. In fact, if you just move it around, you can definitely see that there is a good level of magnification going on, as in like 1.05, 1.1, somewhere in that range, as well as a little bit of warping, especially around the edges of the glass. Now, that is a trade-off because the glass in the optic is very thick. There are definitely optics that, or pistol optics, that provide less distortion, less magnification. They have a little bit more natural looking of an image, if you will. However, they're not going to have the same level of durability, which Holosun has definitely gone with a more durable design. It definitely has a very thick optic shroud that's going to take a lot of that impact should you happen to drop it. And you can watch very good drop test videos by Sage Dynamics and other channels showing that these are indeed durable, tough optics that can take a beating in a variety of situations and continue to work. So that is a trade-off that you're going to get in terms of the glass quality and the actual image that you're getting through it. It's not that it's bad or unusable, it's maybe just a step below some more, again, competition or target focused dots that are going to sacrifice that durability to give you a little bit cleaner of an image. Now, the reticle in this model, again, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is the variety pack reticle, if you will. You have the 2 MOA center dot, 32 MOA outer ring, or you can do a combination of one, the other, or of course, both. Now, me personally, I prefer a simple 6 MOA dot, 8 MOA dot, 3 MOA dot even. Just something very simple, quick to acquire, that sort of thing. Now, in this optic, the way I would usually run it is with just the 2 MOA dot, about a setting above what I needed, so it would bloom out a little bit and give me just a fast sight acquisition, but not necessarily be imprecise. So 2 MOA dot is perfectly fine. Now, the 32 MOA outer circle, I'm not a fan of on this optic because at medium distances, say between 15 and 50 yards, it can actually obscure some of the target, especially depending on target size. So in certain circumstances, it might help you pick it up a little bit faster. When you're shooting very quickly, it kind of looks just like a big green blur that you're just putting on the target, which again works well for speed shooting. But if you try and slow down and do a little bit more precise shooting, that 32 MOA circle, especially if it's, a setting above where it needs to be, can kind of bloom out a little bit and start blocking large portions of your target. What I would have preferred on this, honestly, is instead of a 32 MOA circle, have a much larger 65 MOA circle, because that would still give you a ton of space around the center dot, where you could still use it as fast acquisition up close, say like 5 yards, just put the circle on the target, pull the trigger, And then of course at extended distances or intermediate distances, really, it would still give you enough space around the dot that it's not obscuring your target. So personally for me, I'd rather either have just a dot or something like the ACSS Vulcan reticle, where it has the chevron, which works well for precision and for fast acquisition, but then also, especially if you're someone who does not shoot with a dot very often, also kind of guides your eye to the center and will help you line up that dot every time. Shooting from odd positions, again, learning to shoot with a red dot in general, especially if you're going from iron sights, learning how to shoot with a red dot, it can be slightly different and slightly difficult in certain circumstances to just instantly pick up the dot every time. And even something myself who does shoot with a dot quite often, it is something that I would like to see. It's not necessarily needed, but it does help. And again, if you're somebody who needs that sort of help, thinks it would be faster, so on and so forth, that is something worth looking into. Now, currently on the market, there's really not too many companies making durable style optics like this that are also in this price point of, again, somewhere between $200 and $300, depending on what model you're going for. They're really kind of the only game in town. I know that there are a few more coming out, like Swamp Fox just released their Kraken optic, which I might have to take a look at very soon. On top of that, you also have Primary Arms coming out with their new red dot, which I've seen and heard mixed things on. But overall, currently, Holosun has a very good track record with their pistol optics. They have a ton of different options, enclosed options, titanium options, all of the different features you could possibly want, and again, at affordable price points. So, do I recommend Holosun pistol optics? Absolutely. If you need a pistol optic and you're in that not quite super budget range, but you want to save a little bit more of money over like an RMR or an Acro or something like that, where you're going to be spending $400, $500, $600, $700 to acquire some of these other red dots, then I would absolutely recommend looking at Holosun. The performance to dollar is very, very hard to beat. But with all of that out of the way, guys, let me know what you guys think of the Holosun 507 or any other Holosun pistol optic in the comments down below. But with all of that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace out.